What's up, brother? Special teams, special plays, special players. You're listening to Sports Time HQ, you know, on a Thursday, not a Tuesday. But hey, I'm your host, Fernando. Joining with me today is my great co-host, Keith, and as well as Gary. You guys didn't know about this, but now you know. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, Gary.
It could be a lot. Well, would have been a lot better if I didn't see that, but it's all right.
You'll have to tell me what that's all about, Fernando.
I know. I figured you didn't know what that would be, so I'll have to fill you in. But there's this guy named Sketch. You know, he kind of does this thing, did the "What's up, brother," and then it just became a big thing here in the U.S.
Okay.
I'll have to show you the video. You thought it was funny though. That's all that matters.
I did. So okay, it worked then.
Yeah. We're back for another show, this time talking about wide receivers and tight ends. But before we jump in to our rankings, let's go around news and notes around the league. First, starting off with the former NFL running back, O.J. Simpson. He passed away today, 76 years old, passed away of cancer. I mean, he was a great running back for the Buffalo Bills, All-American at USC. And yeah, you know, tough battle, I guess, with O.J. Simpson. He battled through that for a while.
I was going to say which battle, but okay, you may continue.
Yeah.
I think that's where we'll leave this topic.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Josh Allen, not the quarterback, Josh Allen, defensive player for the Jaguars. He signed a new 5-year, $150 million contract this week. Future for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and maybe they can finally start winning. Who knows? I don't know. This team looks to suck once again with T-Law, personally. But yeah, that's that news.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. Good for the Jags. Keep on their best pieces there. So yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say about that, but I mean, they're a work in progress still when they really shouldn't be. They should be fighting up there for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. He's a great player, so good for them to keep him around. But everybody has had faith in the Jags ever since T-Law has been in the league pretty much. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to play up to par, but who knows?
Nope, not at all. But Gary, the Browns have reworked the contract to keep the star running back, Nick Chubb, in Cleveland for the 2024 season. Chubb and the Browns, they've agreed on a reworked deal where he would lower his base salary of $11.75 million with a chance to earn it back via incentives. What's your thoughts on that? Do you like that for your team? I'm sure you do.
Of course I do. Come on now. He's arguably the best back in the league. We got to keep him around. He wants to be in Cleveland, I think, for his entire career, and the fan base loves him. I love him. We want him to stay in Cleveland no matter what. You know, it was unfortunate the way his season ended last year, but like I said, we all love him so much. We can't let him go after he gets that terrible injury. You know, we're going to hopefully keep him around and hope he can be somewhat what he was the past couple of years.
Keith, for you, Geno Smith, he said he has a lot to prove this season. I think that's pretty much it, whether or not he wants to continue being a franchise quarterback or even a starting quarterback after the season.
Yeah, I mean, new coaching staff coming in, so it's kind of a clean slate for all of them. If he doesn't do the business in training camp, I suppose Sam Howell's going to be there, so to pick up the pieces. But I imagine we'll start with Geno. My issue with Geno is he's not good enough to win a Super Bowl. He's probably not even good enough to go deep into the playoffs, and that's a Seattle problem. So yeah, see what happens going forward, what happens in the draft. I know they've been talking with Bo Nix and stuff like that, so I don't know whether they'll go for someone on day 2 at quarterback and see what they can do there. But yeah, definitely a big season. I don't know what to expect from the Seahawks. I guess we'll learn more as you know, the months go by, how they're shaping up. But I don't know what to expect this season.
Time will tell, especially with the talented offense that you guys have on that team.
Yeah, I mean, his job really shouldn't be that hard if we can get him the protection. Like DK Metcalf, just throw the ball anywhere near him, he generally wins it. The guy has got speed to burn, and he's a tank. So there's all these rumors about Tyler Lockett being traded, but I think that'd be a bad move. I don't think you'd get enough, and the guy is too pivotal piece to move. So, and then JSN, I think he's going to be a star. So really, it's up to Gino here to get his act together from what I seen last year. I mean, if we get him the right protection and stays healthy, it's all in his hands then.
Yeah, I think Tyler Lockett would be a bad move to move away from him. Moving on to an unretirement news. I don't know if you guys saw this. It just kind of broke out about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours ago. Tom Brady, he was on an appearance on Deep Cuts with Vic Blends. And basically, Vic Blends said, let's say one day there's a situation. Maybe it's the 49ers. Maybe you head to the playoffs. Offense is great. And Brady then goes Patriots. Could be the Raiders. Could be you never know. So Vic Blends then proceeds to ask him, would he pick up the phone? And Brady says he's not opposed to it. He doesn't know if they're going to let him, though, because he's trying to become a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and the league rules would prevent him from playing if he is part owner of an NFL team. But he says he could be like a Michael Jordan comeback type of player. I don't know. What's your thoughts? Should Brady just stay retired?
Yeah, just stay retired, man. I mean, he's too old at this stage as well. I mean, I'm not saying he can't come back and throw some touchdowns, but just stay retired. Go into the booth, talk football, and stay there. Go own a team. Move on. Like, if he comes back, fine. But I think there's no way he'll win another Super Bowl or anything like that. I don't know why he would even chance it. He would come back, get one bad hit, and be really, really injured for the rest of his life. I really hurt. So, just stay retired.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think a lot of football fans and Patriots fans will say, well, if you have Brady, you got a shot. But let's be real. He's, 46 now? So, eventually it could be the time now, I agree. He's got to move on. And you can't be on the football field forever. It sucks that a legend is going to be off the field for, going forward. But he could still be around the game providing insight to anybody. So, you should stay retired.
He would be turning 47 on August 9th, just prior to the regular season starting.
Crazy.
I don't know. I think he just wants to come back and play one snap when he's like 50 years old, just to say that he's the only quarterback ever to snap a ball at 50 years old. Who's going to ever break that record? I don't think it's going to be anyone like Brady.
I get it, but I don't know if it's like
you're so close to 50. You might as well just keep playing, right?
He shouldn't have he should have came back and not re-retired like when he came back the first time. Just stay in the league then if that's the case.
Yeah, he just wants to unretire and retire, Maybe it's a publicity stunt. That could also be it.
Doesn't seem like that type of guy, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, I agree with you. Doesn't seem like that type of guy. But that's all we got for news and notes. Keith, Gary, you got anything else? Any other news?
No, it's been quiet.
Unfortunately.
All right, let's move in to the rookie wide receivers. So this is the consensus for the wide receiver. Number 1, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison, he is pretty built, very well, 6'3", 209. He is very athletic. His production score was amazing. Combine was great. He was 4th on the combine among any wide receivers. And he was just elite in college, very elite. Player comparison, CD Lamb, and if you're a person that's looking at fantasy football and you have a comparison to CD Lamb, I think that who just, by the way, is the wide receiver 1 this past season overall. I think it's just Marvin Harrison. You have a tier there, and there's a tier break in the wide receivers for me.
Yeah, I agree. What more really to say than what you already said? Elite speed, strength. He's young. He's got it all. Comes from a famous family, so it's all there for him to be great. It's just, I suppose, the landing spot might kill him a little bit. That's the big thing.
Yeah, I agree. If you're analyzing the draft and you don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. as your number 1 wide receiver on your big board, I don't know what you're doing. To be completely honest with you. But yeah, I was blessed as an Ohio State fan to watch him during his whole tenure there. and my eyes were just popping every other game. It's like, what else can this guy do? I'm making him watch miraculous catch after miraculous catch, and I just hope he can translate that to the league and do exactly what I saw him do at Ohio State.
Now, obviously, Gary, you're an Ohio State fan. And obviously, Marvin Harrison, he's going to be a top 5 pick. I'd be shocked if he goes past top 5. What is the odds that he does nothing in the league? What if he disappoints? Cooper Daly asked the question. Well, he didn't ask it. He basically said it in a statement. But what if Marvin Harrison becomes a wide receiver bust?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's possible, and I don't think there's a sliver of chance that it could happen. But if it were to happen, yeah, it would be terrible. I mean, he's probably the most hyped up prospect since Calvin Johnson coming out of college. So I think that people would go crazy over this, I guess you could say. But I do agree with what Keith said, that it's possible that his first year could be somewhat of a down year or less than what people expect, just due to the fact that he's probably going to end up in Arizona. Who really knows what that offense is going to do? They're terrible, but at the same time, they're not. Like, I didn't expect them to be putting up as many points as they did last year. They actually looked relatively good at times, the offense in Arizona. So I don't really know. I've said it multiple times. I feel like Marv and the way he plays reminds me of D-Hop in a way, and we saw what Kyler did with D-Hop. So who really knows? Again, he's going to be a rookie coming into the league. So if you think he's going to go for 1,500 plus in his first year, you're probably out of your mind, but I think he can eventually get there.
Yeah, I agree with Gary there. I mean, for fantasy-wise, I wouldn't be expecting major things. You obviously go get him if you have the number 1, but I mean, kind of temper your expectations a little bit just because of the landing spot. I mean, if he gets somehow put with an elite quarterback, well then fine, boom, you're good. But I think you'll have one okay year and then you could take off.
Yeah, what it looks like right now is Patriots at 3, Cardinals at 4, Chargers at 5. Say, for instance, the Chargers do end up taking Marvin Harrison. Maybe they jump to the Patriots to get that pick, snipe the Cardinals. Do you guys think out of these 3 picks, Patriots, Cardinals, Chargers, where would he strive the best in his rookie season for fantasy?
On me, it's Chargers or Herbert. That makes the most sense to me. I mean, fantasy wise, if they line up, then you can maybe hit that 1,500. Then like Gary said, that's very doable. You just don't know. Definitely not the Patriots. Sorry, Fernando. And you don't know you just don't know what you're getting out of Kyler. That's the issue. Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, Gary, you don't really know what this offense is going to bring, but I'm pretty sure you'd be very happy if you see him the Chargers taking him and then you're taking him in your fantasy drafts.
Right, exactly. And it's the same for Neighbors. I think that if he's going to end up going to Los Angeles, then I think he's going to lead the league he's going to lead all rookies in receiving yards. But I just think that it's a clear and obvious choice. If Marv were to go to LA, then forget what I said. He could very easily put up 1,500 yards. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to go there. If he goes to New England or Arizona, he might eclipse 1,000. He'll be lucky to do that, I think, in year 1. But it'll be fun to watch him play because I love him. So
I'm a big believer in Kyler, so I think he would still strive in Arizona, and I think he might actually strive a little bit more than he would if he was in Los Angeles. And the reason why is because Quentin Johnson, a former top pick in the NFL last year. So I think there would be a little conflict there. And that's why I would take Marvin Harrison being an Arizona Cardinal better than Los Angeles in fantasy.
Quentin Johnson couldn't catch a ball for the whole first half of the
season. He was working on it. I know. I don't like him either.
A guy coming into the league is working on catching the ball, the basics. Come on.
And he was still a top pick.
I know.
Still a top pick.
I know.
Shouldn't have been. By the way.
I know. He shouldn't have been. I mean, I don't think Marvin Harrison will be losing any sleep if he ends up with the Chargers and Quentin Johnson's there beside him.
No,
I'd be
not
happy.
a chance.
That was him.
Not a chance at all. Coming in at number 2 is Malik Neighbors. Obviously, we don't all agree with Malik Neighbors being at number 2. Gary actually has Rome Odunze at number 2, but obviously, average-wise, Malik Neighbors comes in at number 2. Malik Neighbors, he's a really good prospect, 6 foot, 200 pounds. His production score is number 1 in the NFL for all wide receivers. His total score in general athleticism, 8th. I mean, this guy is no doubt a really good player. I mean, he's from LSU, and we can all understand that LSU wide receivers just somehow strive so well in the NFL. And I like him a lot. There's people that have him over Marvin Harrison. I don't know about that. I still agree with Marvin Harrison still being number 1, but this is kind of like you have Marvin Harrison, then you have a tier break, and then you have this guy Malik Neighbors, and then there's a tier break after that, because these two are really good, but they are both also different in similar in different ways. Right now, player comparison to Malik Neighbors is Justin Jefferson, and I'm going to be honest, I like Justin Jefferson coming out of the draft, and I really like Malik Neighbors as well coming out of the draft for fantasy. If you have the 101 or 102, you're going to get Marvin Harrison. You might have 104, 105, and you might still be able to get Malik Neighbors.
Possibly. I like Neighbors too. I mean, I think Gary's going to fight you over that tier break with Neighbors coming next, but I like him too. Plays in the outside, play on the inside too, or in the slot. And he looks great. He's my clear number 2 as well. Interesting to see where Gary's going to go here with Neighbors and what he's got to say about your tier break.
I don't mind anybody having Neighbors at 2 because I think it's a complete toss-up. It's just me personally. I think that Adunze is a better player. I wouldn't necessarily say a better player. I think he's a better NFL prospect. He's got a better build. I believe Adunze is 6'3", and Neighbors is 6 foot 6'1". Adunze's faster, and he's better at the contested catch. I just think that Adunze does a lot more of what you want in an NFL caliber wide receiver than Neighbors. But at the same time, Neighbors is still a tier 1 talent in this draft. And I'm not surprised that a lot of people have him over Adunze. That's totally fine. Like I said, it's a toss-up. It's just, in my opinion, I like Adunze better than Neighbors.
So obviously, Keith and I, we both have Neighbors at number 2. But do you think Neighbors and Adunze are kind of in the same tier? Would you say?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think you hit the nail on the head with Marv and then a tier break. But I think that it would be Neighbors and Adunze in the same tier, and then another tier break.
I could very much see it, and we'll move on to your guy Rome Odunze that you like. I mean, I don't really do this too much with tier breaks, but I've never had, I think, the first 3 guys being in different tiers, because I think after Odunze, everyone's just kind of jumbled together.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I'm seeing it. Rome Odunze, he's the next guy off the board for wide receivers. He comes in 6'3", 212 pounds, an elite scorer as well. I mean, he's still another really good player out of Washington. I mean, he played in all 4 games when he had his 1 start in 2020. I mean, this guy is just really good. He's an All-American, first team All Pac-12 conference. His player comparison, it's a guy you would know. Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald did really good in the league, and for fantasy purposes, he also did really good. Odunze could be a great captain. Like you said, he's a molded wide receiver, and he can be really good. I do like him a lot, but that's why. But I also can't put him above Neighbors because I think Neighbors is just a little bit ahead than Odunze.
The player comp, are you good with that? Larry Fitz? I mean, would you say Odunze is not good? Did you think Odunze would be better than Larry Fitz?
I think that's a tough one because Fitz is he's just elite in his own way. I don't think there'll ever be like a Larry Fitz ever again because I think of how good and how efficient he was, and he was just a different type of player.
Interesting. Okay. I'm just getting your opinion on it. That's all.
Yeah. What do you think about Odunze, Keith?
I think he's good, athletically, big dude. I mean, there wasn't too much in it. Let's be honest. I thought between Neighbors and him. I know I stirred it up on the mock by taking Brian Robinson Jr. That was fun. I'll do it again probably on another one for fun. But we know that wasn't the pick. You just got to throw things out there sometimes. But yeah, no, he's definitely the next man up.
Yeah, Odunze is my number 2, like I stated. And yeah, I don't care if you got Neighbors at 2 or 3. That's just the kind of wide receiver that I look at. I completely agree with the Larry Fitzgerald comparison. He's a guy that can run routes well, but can also jump up and get contested balls. He's got speed, height, everything that you want in an NFL wide receiver. And yeah, he had better numbers than Neighbors if you're a numbers guy. And not to mention, the entire LSU offense statistics are inflamed just due to the fact that their defense was abysmal. And that's another reason why Jaden Daniels got the Heisman. So if you're a stats guy, I think you're going to lean towards a Dunze. And even if not, it's a toss-up. So
Hey, Stats Time HQ doesn't agree with you.
no,
I agree with Neighbors. Go Neighbors.
fine. That's fine.
Rumors in the chat as well is there's been breaking news from All Talk Sports. If only this could be true. Brady and Marv confirmed to the Patriots. How amazing would that be as a Patriots fan?
I'd love to see it, but
That'd be pretty cool. Not gonna lie. I mean, I don't see Brady coming back. There's no way. But
no.
Marv, maybe that's the solution Brady and Marv and the Patriots need. But right now, the Patriots got nothing. Their rankings came out. They're 29 to 31 in power rankings, and that just means how terrible you are. Sorry, as much of a Patriots fan I am, I tell the truth. Coming in at number 4 is Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is our consensus number 4 wide receiver. Brian Thomas, he's not bad. He comes in 6'3", 209 pounds. Again, another guy from LSU, but Brian Thomas, he came in. Malik Neighbors was the guy in LSU. Then Thomas is also the other guy right on the other side. And Neighbors kind of took it away from Thomas, kind of the routes and the targets that he was getting. I think Thomas is okay. I think he's good, but I don't know how much he will do well in the NFL. I think if I'm correct, he also didn't start his career as a wide receiver. He was not a wide receiver when he started his career. So he also has some ball handling problems that he'll need to work on if he really wants to succeed in the NFL.
Interesting. I actually thought he tracked the ball well in the clips I've seen pretty well. But he's got good size, got good speed. There's more buzz about him, in recent weeks. I don't know about he was there, but what I've been hearing over here and reading, they're definitely eyeing up top 15, top 20, but whether that happens, I don't know. I liked what I saw. I wasn't aware because I just watched clips of him as a wide receiver. I wasn't aware he wasn't a receiver all his life.
Yeah, I like Brian Thomas. The one thing that I like about him is that he can make something out of nothing. In a lot of clips, if you go to watch his highlights, you can see Jaden Daniels in trouble a lot, and he just simply dumps the ball to Brian Thomas, and he's just got that home run, big play ability. Like I said, to make something out of nothing. That's probably the biggest thing that I like in Brian Thomas Jr. I also like his size. I believe he's 6'2". So another all-around solid wide receiver. But, yeah, he does have some ball handling, ball security issues. I did notice that as well.
His player comparison is Martavius Bryant.
No, he might as well just go now. Get out of the league.
Another red flag that I also want to mention about Brian Thomas. I don't know if any of you saw the stat, but targets per route run. Do you know what that was? 19.3%. Not good.
Yeah.
There's only been 4 first-round wide receivers below 20%. And I don't think you even want to know the names to these guys. The names to these guys: Kadarius Toney, Jalen Reagor, Henry Ruggs, and Philip Dorsett.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. So not really a good thing on targets per route run from Brian Thomas. Hopefully he does not continue onto that list. But, he just needs to work on his ball handling skills and make sure he gets those targets on his route run.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 5 is Troy Franklin. I like Troy Franklin a lot. I've still been debating about whether or not I want to move him above Brian Thomas. Troy Franklin comes in for Keith and I at number 5, Gary at 6. Troy Franklin, I mean, he's another great player out of Oregon. 6'2", 176. His NFL player comparison, Chris Olave. So it's pretty good. I mean, in his college career, 209 yards in his rookie season, 891, big improvement after that in year 2. And then his final season, year 3, as a junior, 1,383 yards, also double-digit touchdowns. Troy Franklin's special, and I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver in the NFL, and I think he's going to match up very well in fantasy. I might actually say Troy Franklin might be better than Brian Thomas for fantasy.
Probably not wrong. I think why the comparison is Olave is his route running. It's very similar. He's very smooth in now routes, decent deep ball, speed as well. Gary, probably you know more. Though, do you think that he's a guy that might get forgotten about and, might go later than expected? Just kind of some of the other comments and the other wide receivers kind of have something that maybe might be a bit more flashy about them.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. The one thing that made Troy Franklin lose some points, in my opinion, is his size. Not a big fan of the fact that he's only 175 pounds or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 176.
Yeah, so I don't really like that, but he is, another explosive home run ball guy. He does have speed and agility. So it's possible, just due to that he's not the strongest player. He'll probably get jammed on the line a lot, but like I said, he's got speed, so he'll go somewhere. But it's possible that he could be a forgotten guy.
So here's my question. Do you think, obviously quarterback matters, and you mentioned how Troy Franklin can be forgotten. Obviously he could be a late first rounder, early second, but I mean, the matter is going 32 to the Chiefs or second 2.01 to the Panthers. I mean, that's completely different teams. Right. And I think you'd value Franklin a lot higher if he was on the Chiefs versus if he was on the Panthers. But obviously right now around like 15-20 range for Brian Thomas. I mean, say Brian Thomas goes to the Steelers and then say Troy Franklin goes to the Bills. I mean, who do you guys rather have in fantasy if you're debating between those two guys?
Franklin, because you're putting him with an elite quarterback straight away, and you don't know what's going on with the Steelers. So,
yeah, I completely agree.
Okay, I was just quickly asking that one. Coming in at number 6, AD Mitchell. Mitchell, he is, what is he? I think AD Mitchell's my number 7 guy. Key 6 guy, and then number 5 for Gary. So Gary, you like AD Mitchell a lot. Mitchell, he comes in as 6'2", 205 pounds out of Texas. He's not bad. He's not a bad receiver. His player comparison, George Pickens, and he is a speed shifter. So that is a huge one. If you're trying to get some speed out of this guy, he is good and he can get you some speed. I think his 40-yard dash was somewhere between 4.34, I think. So he's really good. He's really fast, and he can break away and be like a Tyreek Hill type guy.
Possibly. He has plus size, and he's another one whose route running is pretty good too. The one thing I seen one clip from where a ball was just hanging up there, and I was like, go jump, go attack it, and he just wouldn't do it. I don't know if it was just one thing, but there was definitely some comments being made that he kind of lacks like going out there and attacking the ball. So maybe that's something he's got to work on, but it definitely looked like he has the tools. He's probably a good guy that will, if he lands up with a good coaching staff, that will definitely improve.
Keith, you're exactly right. The only really problem that I have with AD Mitchell is his ball reading skills is not that great, and could substantially improve. But I think that whatever you're going to get from Troy Franklin, you're going to get from AD Mitchell plus the height involved. He's just a really lengthy guy, but he's also quick. Freddie, you said that I love AD Mitchell. I actually don't. I hate him because of what he did to my Buckeyes 2 years ago. But when he was at Georgia, he had the game-winning touchdown, and he celebrated like a clown. But then he transferred to Texas, and he just became the star. He was never really the number 1 guy at Georgia. Lab McConkey was. and now we see what he can do. He's a guy that can go vertical up the field really good. He can get contested balls at times, but that's really his biggest issue is his ball reading skills when it's up in the air. So that's what I would like to see him get better at.
So my question to you is, he only had a total, I think, about 560 yards in Georgia in his first 2 seasons. Last year, only 845 yards, but he did have 11 touchdowns. Is there a concern for him not having a 1,000-yard plus season in college?
Not really. I mean, Texas is a star-studded offense. They got Xavier Worthy. They got Ja'Tavion Sanders. So I'm not really necessarily worried about that. You brought up the double-digit touchdown numbers. That's because he is a home run ball guy at the end of the day, and he can make a lot happen. So I'm not necessarily worried about the low yard numbers because his potential really is there. And I would like to see what he can do in the league.
All right. Moving on to our 7th guy, Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman, Florida State guy, 6'3", 213 pounds. He ran a 4.61. His NFL player comparison is actually really good. Drake London is his player comparison. He did really good in college. If I'm correct, he had
really good.
461.
Yeah. Fernando loves Drake London.
I said Drake London's not really good, and I have I have a better comparison.
Okay, let me hear your comparison then. Let's hear your comparison.
He looked like a T. Higgins to me.
I agree with that.
I like
big
Drake
guy.
London,
I like
Drake. I think I like Drake London over T. Higgins.
You put T. Higgins on any other team, he's a wide receiver one. I'll have T. Higgins any other day over Drake London. Drake London's not a wide receiver.
I think Drake London also can be a wide receiver one. He's just on a terrible team. Terrible coaching, terrible everything.
You swap T. Higgins and Drake London, and you still get better production out of T. Higgins, and you won't get as much good production of Drake London with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, but did Drake London deliver any donuts in fantasy? That's the question.
Probably.
So many targets for T. Higgins in a few games, and didn't get any catches.
T. Higgins just had injury issues last year, but T. Higgins is, to me, he looks like a proper wide receiver one, and that's what the vibes I got off Keon Coleman. He scores touchdowns at a crazy rate. I think it was like 22%.
Brendan comparing him to Kelvin Benjamin 2.0 there.
Yeah, he's okay.
But Keon Coleman, he comes in at 7 for us. For me, I have him at 6. Keith, you have him at 7, and so do you, Gary. So let's hear it from you guys.
I already said my big one, Gary.
Well, I know you, but
I like Keon Coleman. He's big and fast for his size. It's just the one thing is his drops. He had a lot of them, especially when he was actually running the routes instead of being still when he caught the ball. That's really just my big thing, especially because I think that if he can perfect that with his size going up over the top of DBs, that's going to be really good for whoever drafts him. So I think that's just my one issue with him.
Okay. Coming in at number 8 is Xavier Worthy, the speedster, having the fastest combine time of 4.21. Worthy, I have him at 8. Actually, we all have him at 8 consensus-wise. Xavier Worthy, he had an uptick in yards this past season, just eclipsed 1,000 yards, first time in his college career, but touchdowns was an issue. 12 touchdowns in his rookie season, followed by 9, then 5. It looks as if he doesn't become a red zone target type of guy. He is a playmaker, though, in the field, but doesn't really see many targets in the red zone. He comes in 5'11", 165 pounds. Very concerning because he reminds me of a John Ross, and I don't think I want to see that again. His player comparison, Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, I think his skill set overall for his size and height is definitely good, but I think he's going to get knocked back on draft day purely because he just won't be what teams are looking for. I think they'll just look at him and say no. I think he's a guy who's going to fall, unfortunately. And like you said, John Ross is like the comparison. Like, obviously, hopefully he doesn't end up like that. I didn't mind what I saw on tape for the brief time I watched them, but I wouldn't be too convinced he's going, even halfway in the second round, because I think teams could just make him no, just because of his size.
Yeah, I agree. That's the problem I have with Xavier Worthy. Everybody knows. If you didn't know, you know now that he's the quickest wide receiver in the draft, and that's the pinnacle of why teams want to draft him. But yeah, you mentioned it. He's 5'11", 165 or whatever it was. For an NFL player, NFL wide receiver, it's pretty small. And he could have trouble getting off the line, so his speed wouldn't even matter. So I agree that he could potentially be getting pushed back.
So another comparison I want to give you guys, who comes in at 165 pounds, because we talked about how 165 can be concerning, especially the speed of Xavier Worthy comparing it to John Ross. This guy doesn't have all that much speed, but he is a playmaker. Coming in at 165 pounds as well in the NFL is Tank Dell. So a little comparison there. Going in at number 9 is Ladd McConkey. We have him again across the board consensus. He comes in 6 foot, 186 pounds. His player comparison is not the best, though. His player comparison comes in as Elijah Moore. He has not actually eclipsed 1,000 receiving yards in his career each season. Only 1,687 in his 3-year career. Didn't play as a freshman. He redshirted his first year, then stayed in Georgia for the rest. Last year, again, 2 touchdowns last year. I mean, his best season was his sophomore year, and then he just didn't get as much production as he wanted. Again, I want to hear you guys. I like McConkey. I hope he has some faith, but his production score overall is just not as good. There was a lot of faith, though, in him after his sophomore year.
Elijah Morris is comparison. That's rough. I mean, I thought he was one of the better route runners when I watched him. I thought he was very clean, definitely better than Elijah Moore. The issue was the rate of touchdowns for fantasy wise. I don't think he's going to do very well in fantasy. That's where, but as a player coming into the league, he can definitely, have a career out of it. Didn't exactly burn for pace either, but I generally thought he was okay. Obviously, he had the ankle injuries last year. I don't think they'll linger for him, but ankle injuries can be annoying because they can just creep back up at any time. But yeah, I'd say he'd do a lot better than Elijah Moore if he gets put on the right team.
Yeah, I have some things to say about McConkey. I don't really agree with the Elijah Moore player comparison. He's an excellent route runner, and he got hurt in back-to-back years. So that's definitely why his production was down. So that to me isn't an issue at all. I really like Ladd McConkey. I think that, and it's not just because he's white, I think the way that he plays is exactly like Cooper Kupp. He's an excellent route runner. He's quick. He's got a smaller frame, but that I think that when you have route running and speed, that's exactly what Cooper Kupp is. They look exactly the same when they're playing. So, but I think that, yeah, the one problem with Ladd McConkey to me is his injury history because it's not great.
Okay. So injury concern for McConkey being the big factor. Obviously, these are our top 9 for wide receivers, but once the draft happens, they're going to be bouncing around depending on where the spots are. Number 10 was a tough one to kind of really get the average for us because we all had different players at number 10. So we will go all through the players that we had at number 10. I'll start with my guy, Ricky Pearsall. This guy, actually not too bad. Pearsall comes in at 6'1", 189 pounds, coming out of Florida. His player comparison, Kenny Stills, which is not the greatest, but he's got some good strengths. I mean, he keeps the route tempo primed through his turns. Catches are quiet, so he's able to get the soft hands and really be able to grab it and go. But something that he does need to work on is the high number of catches came running uncovered against the zone. So that is something he will need to work on. But this guy, he has potential in the league. Where he lands is going to be the biggest question mark. If the Chargers don't take a wide receiver in the first, he could fall in the Chargers later on in the rounds. He could be a Bengal later on, another place, maybe the Rams as the wide receiver 3, or even the Steelers.
I didn't do too much research into your Ricky Purcells, so I will let Gary take over.
This is a kid from what, Florida, right?
Florida, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see his one-handed catch?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. And I think that if you know Ricky Purcell, that's probably why you know him. That's really all I have to say about him is that his hands are really good, and I think that the Browns were actually looking at him, so maybe we can see him go there. I wouldn't be too mad about that.
Wouldn't be a bad thing. Keith, your guy comes in, Rome Wilson. I kind of like Rome Wilson. Rome Wilson comes at number 11 for me, and I like Wilson. But talk to me about Wilson.
I thought this guy looked like a speed demon, decent route running. I got a very Chris Olave feel off him. He's scoring touchdowns like 25% of his catches last season. I mean, I really enjoyed watching his tape. I just kind of watched a bit more of it. But again, it's probably like Gary's issue too. It's like the size thing. I think is where he'll shuffle back. I think he's like 5'11", 180, 185 pounds, something like that. I think that's the big issue, especially what we know what teams are looking for these days. But if he does get on a top team or at least gets a chance to play, I really like what he brought.
Yeah, that's a big problem for me. But the biggest problem is that he's a Michigan Wolverine bum. No, I don't hate Roman Wilson. He's a good player for sure. I think he'll do good in soft coverage. I think that the Chris Olave comparison is spot on. Smaller guy, but his route running is good. He could do something if he goes to the right system for sure.
Yeah, Roman Wilson. I mean, he accounted for 50% of Michigan's receiving scores, so he can be efficient in the end zone, and that is a big factor too for fantasy purposes, because if you're getting targets in the end zone, you're going to be able to get a lot of points out of your guys. Again, he is, I think we could say consensus wise that he's solidified at least a day 2 pick, right? I think so. Yeah. Gary, your guy, Xavier Legette, talk to me about him.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, he's big. 6'1", 6'2", maybe 220, something like that. Mm-hmm. I like his frame. He's another really explosive guy that can make big plays happen at any time. Played South Carolina. Who knows? I think that he's a guy who has actually been up there in terms of wide receivers on the board, but I think he slid down a little bit. I'm not too sure what the reason for that is, but I think he deserves to be in the top 10. I think he should be in the top 10. So, yeah, that's where I'll leave it.
Well, here's my reasoning why he's been dropping so much. And Keith, I don't know if Keith knows this.
Tell me.
So he is a 5th year, already a red flag.
Yeah.
Because you're what, 23 almost? I think 23, if not. This guy also in his 4 years prior to his 5th year, he did not get more than 300 receiving yards in 4 years. And then all of a sudden this year, he got 1,250 receiving yards. This guy just somehow went from not getting anything, not being relevant at all, to come back for a 5th year and breaking out and somehow getting a top 75 pick. I think that one season is being overhyped because I think we got to look at it in general. I don't know if Legette deserves to be top 10 personally.
Interesting. I mean, I've seen some stuff like those receiving yards were like 38% of the team receiving yards. I mean, that's that's monster numbers. Like, so I can get where you're coming from there, but I mean, if he's getting that much volume, he has to be good. You know what I mean? He's like, you don't get.
And he translated though in the NFL.
That that's across the board, I think, for most players. But like that's a lot of shares for a team. Like when I seen them numbers, I was like, holy crap. So you'd imagine he's definitely going to get picked somewhere. Like, can he translate it? Who knows? But that's a serious percentage for the team yards.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see who one of our top 10 players gets drafted, where they will get drafted in day 2. Moving on to the tight ends. We're not talking about top 10 because I think we would lose our minds if we had to talk about top 10. So we're going to talk about the first 5 and then kind of talk about what we have on average from 6 through 10, and then kind of talk about which player we like in that range. But coming in at number 1 is Brock Bowers. Consensus-wise, I mean, Bowers, he's a fantastic guy. 6'3", 243 pounds. Brock Bowers, I mean, he is one of the greatest tight ends to come in recent years. 6'3", 243. I think he is personally better than Kyle Pitts. But again, Keith knows I wasn't a big fan in Kyle Pitts, and I think he is
you got that right.
Tremendously better. Tremendously better. His NFL player comparison is really good. It is Mr. No other than George Kittle. So George Kittle having the player comparison really good. I mean, his run routes are really controlled, really good with talent. I mean, this guy is. I'll ask you guys the question actually after. I'll ask you that question after. I'll save that question. But let's hear about Brock Bowers for you guys.
Number 1, I liked him. I think he has kind of like rare agility. Sometimes he looks like he's a receiver out there for a big man. I think the comparison to George Kittle is very good. Yeah, liked what I seen, but I don't know. I know you're going on about Kyle Pitts and all that. Like, you got it right technically for fantasy about Kyle Pitts. I mean, if you put Kyle Pitts with a better team and better quarterback, I think he'll shine. I don't know. He's good, but is he that good, like, compared to the level of other tight ends coming out of this class? That's my thing on it.
Yeah, this tight end class is really bad, so that's obviously why he's a standout. But also everybody knows how good he was at Georgia for however many years he was there. But I think he broke a bunch of records there. Tight end of the year 2 years in a row, I believe. So everybody knows how good he is. I think that it's with like the receivers, it all depends where he goes. I think that a sleeper team to draft him is Tennessee, and if he goes there, I don't really think that he'll be great in his first year or 2. So it's the same for everybody. Depends on where he goes. But he does have a really bright future.
My question to you guys is in the leagues, one quarterback dynasty league, would you rather draft Brock Bowers or Brian Thomas?
It's gonna be like Glenn's spot. It's gonna help with that. But
okay.
Knowing where the league is going, I'd go Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas. Okay. So say Brian Thomas. All right. So let me ask you this question then. Say Brian Thomas goes to the Raiders, and Brock Bowers goes to, we'll say, the Titans. Does that change your perspective?
That's like a toss of a coin.
Or what about the Jets? Bowers going to the Jets.
Toss of a coin. It's the Jets. Yeah, you could probably say Bowers to the Jets, to be fair. But go on, Gary.
Yeah, I'd probably say Bowers. I think that teams are not only going to look at him as a George Kittle type player, but I think they're going to look at him more honestly like a Travis Kelce type player, because when he played at Georgia, he was 100 times more of a route runner instead of a blocker. And I think that they're going to jump at the opportunity of using him to the most of their ability, the best way that they can. So I think that if he gets in a half good system, you should for sure draft him if you get the chance.
All right. Coming in at number 2 consensus-wise, Jatavian Sanders. Sanders, 6'4", 245, coming out of Texas as well. This is kind of a tier break. Bowers is the number 1 guy. Then there's a tier break for Sanders. And then after that, it's kind of a little misty, you know. Player comparison, David Njoku. He is a talented pass-catching tight end, and this gives you an excellent idea for where he gets drafted if he is going to be involved in the offense, because if he can be a great pass catcher and he can translate that to the NFL, he could be also fantasy relevant. Maybe not his rookie season, but maybe in the following seasons as well. I think if I'm looking at it in fantasy perspective, Brock Bowers obviously top dog, but then Jatavian Sanders also another guy I wouldn't mind drafting in fantasy or dynasty wise.
Yeah, big dude, fast for the position as well. That's what I kind of took away from it. Can get off the line pretty quick when he's obviously not like checked or bumped or anything like that. Can definitely, have yards after the catch. He's a guy, depending obviously where you take him in drafts. He's a guy I wouldn't mind waiting on over than somebody reaching for Brock or just going higher for Brock Bowers.
Right, exactly. That's the biggest thing I take away from watching Jatavian Sanders is that he's got crazy speed and agility for his size. He's a guy that can throw somebody off of them with his strength, and a guy that can hurdle any defender that is in front of him, exactly how Chief David Njoku does. So I think that player comparison is perfect, and I really like Jatavian Sanders coming out of this draft.
So number 3, Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson, he has a really good build, and he's got an excellent size. He comes in 6'6", 259 pounds. Keith and I, we have him at 3, and Gary, you have him at 5. So you've dropped him a lot. You don't like him. Not like that. But anyways, his comparison is Foster Moreau. Not bad, but also Foster Moreau has not had the best career for fantasy wise.
Yeah. Well, he's a big dude. Like what you say, 6'6"?
I think he's the biggest tight end in the draft. Both.
Yeah, like the Foster Moreau thing is because he kind of wasn't overly productive, I don't think, with Penn State. But
yeah,
he's got like that big athletic body. I mean, he's definitely could be a red zone target, especially for fantasy. Like you mightn't do a whole lot, moving down the field, but he might get you, like we always say, Fernando, to 10 to 12 points because he'll end up in the end zone. So that's where I was coming from. I think he's a guy that going forward mightn't see a whole lot of the ball, out in the field, but down inside the red zone, he could get a lot of touches.
Yeah, Theo Johnson's good, and especially for his size. He's got good route running and catch radius, but he clearly will lack a little bit of speed just due to that size. And if I'm remembering correctly, he was used a lot for blocking, more so than going out and running routes, even though he was pretty good at it. So that's probably, I think, the biggest reason why he dropped a couple spots for me is just that his usage rate wasn't high, and I don't really know how much he's going to get used in the NFL.
Completely understandable. I mean, that is a big concern, especially can he translate it to the NFL to improve on his pass catching ability? And that will determine whether or not he's going to be fantasy relevant too. Coming in at number 4, Cade Stover. Gary, you actually have him all the way up at 3. Keith, you have him here at 4, and then I have him at 5. Cade Stover, 6'4", 247, so another great build for him. A little bit smaller, though, than Theo Johnson, but he has athleticism. He's got good footwork, and being able to adjust on different catches is a good one. And now I also understand why Gary likes him so much and why he's at number 3 for him.
See where he goes?
He is a Buckeye.
I see his face. Yeah, no, I wrote in my notes, the first sentence I wrote in my notes when I put Cade Stover 3. There may be a little bit bias present here. But no, he's a good player, and stats don't tell the entire story. Cade Stover was hurt a couple times, but when he played, he was really, really productive at Ohio State. Of course, he's smothered in talent to his left and his right at OSU. But every time he touched the ball, he made a great play, very physical and agile for his size. And the same thing that I said about Jatavian Sanders, you can say with Cade Stover in the sense that he can stiff arm any defender in front of him, and he can hurdle any defender in front of him. So I think that he'll be an underrated pickup for anybody that grabs him because he can make some plays.
Yep. I mean, I thought overall he looked fine. I don't think like his skill set looked good. He's fast without being, really quick. One thing I took away was like he had really good hands. I mean, that's what I took away. Gary, you're the guy to ask. Is this the dude that's the converted linebacker? He was a linebacker and now he's tight end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been hearing some things about him, and I think that was him. Yeah, I mean, I think he looked fine. I didn't have too many, I didn't see too many negatives. Skill set was all, it'll do the job. Probably above average speed, but yeah, is really good. His catchability really stood out to me, and interesting that he's a converted linebacker.
Yeah,
this guy sucks.
There it is.
Sorry, I had to, Gary. I do like him. I do like him a lot. I think it's kind of like the 3-4-5 can just kind of go anywhere, personally, in my opinion. And it's also based on the landing spots. I mean, Stover could be on a completely better team than Jatavian Sanders, and then it's completely different. Stover could be my number 2 after that. Coming in at number 5, Ben Sinnott. Ben, so he actually is, for me, number 4. Keith, number 5, and Gary, you as well at number 4. Sinnott, he is 6'4", 250 pounds. His comparison, not the greatest comparison. Tyler Kroft. That's his player comparison. Wow. So take what you want with that with a grain of salt, but he's from Kansas State. Would not be surprised if this is a guy that goes to Kansas City, because they like to take players from their hometown, and what better way? Because we know Travis Kelce is getting old, and who knows? Ben Sinnott, he gets drafted there. It's going to be the biggest blow up. Ben Sinnott's the next Travis Kelce. He's going to sit behind Travis Kelce for a couple of years, and then he's going to become Travis Kelce. But he does have stuff to work with. I mean, he fails to fit run blocks. So Kelce, he can run block, but he is also a little slow with his hands when the throws are on top of him. So that is another big one to be concerned about. But let's hear your takes on Sinnott.
I think he looked like a pretty good athlete. Good quickness, good acceleration. The thing I took away from him was I watched 2 clips, and he could have ran out with the ball, and he just wanted to go through more tackles. I mean, he's going to get hurt if he's going to play like that in the NFL and not go down or not just go out with the ball. There was twice I was kind of going, okay, yeah, he broke the tackle, but I was like, could have just easily just ran out, and I don't know if it was a first down, I can't remember, or whatever, but he's going to get hurt trying to get extra yards. That's what I kind of took away.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't think he's the best yards after catch player, but before the snap, he's a really good route runner for his size and position. He's got a good frame, and I'm pretty sure at Kansas State he was Will Howard's favorite target. So I often watch a lot of Kansas State highlights for some odd reason. I did, and I saw him making a lot of plays, so I liked him. I just don't know if he'll be able to do anything in the league, but I think you could say that with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, very much so. Rounding out our top 10, number 6, Jaheim Bell, number 7, Jared Wiley, number 8, AJ Barner, number 9, Dallin Hoker, and number 10, Eric All. Out of these guys, any of these guys you think have potential for maybe a fantasy impact, and maybe in the future? I'll start with my guy. My guy is Jared Wiley. Wiley's from TCU, 6'6" as well, so he's really tall. 249 pounds, great build for another tight end. The height and the length to play over the rim, that's the biggest thing. He also has hands, and he has consistent extension, so he can reach for the balls if the balls are lax. So if you're dumping it off and maybe it's low to the ground, he can get down there. But he does lack footwork. Getting out of ins and outs of breaks are something he will really need to work on, and he doesn't break enough tackles. That's another one he needs to work on. But overall, I think he could be a guy that could be fantasy relevant in the future.
Yeah, we're on the same guy, Fernando. He stood out to me. Looked a bit more flexible as a pass catcher than other tight ends, especially of his height and size. The only thing I would say, he's not exactly going to bulldoze anybody out of the way, say after the catch or anything like that. But he was a guy that kind of, for his speed and size, stood out to me.
I'm going to talk about Dallin Holker.
Okay.
Colorado State, I believe. If you watch it, or if you know who he is, he's kind of got the hair thing going on. Minus that, his play style, I think he looks exactly like Tyler Higbee when he plays. I think it's kind of cool watching him play because he's kind of a do-it-all guy. And I looked at his game log, and he started out really, really hot in terms of receiving yards and touchdowns. I believe he had 4 touchdowns in 4 games and like almost 500 yards in the first 4 games. He just slowed down towards the end. Maybe he can get some of that production back in the NFL if he goes somewhere, but he looked like a solid route runner and a guy that can haul in a number of different balls in his catch radius. So who knows?
Okay. Interesting. I know the player comparison for Jared Wiley comes in as a taller Austin Hooper. So it could maybe compare, maybe could be a good future. But Dallin Holker, another guy that I like as well. I mean, Holker, I was right down the street from him back in January.
Really?
Yeah, I went to Colorado to go visit some friends who I studied abroad with, and they actually go to CSU. So they know very much about Holker. So, but that's going to do it for another great episode here on Sports Time HQ. Top 10 rookies, wide receivers, and tight ends. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, go to Underdog Fantasy, use code SportsTimeHQ. They will match first deposit up to $100. I just bet on UConn. UConn won it all. Hey, go get yourself some cash on Underdog Fantasy. They're going to match your first deposit using code SportsTimeHQ. Also, go to TrophySmack.com/SportsTimeHQ. Trophy, ring, or belt. Go get any of those. They also added some brand new features, having new banners. So if you win and you want to put in a little banner, like, I don't know, Gillette Stadium and any other team. Sorry, I got to also mention, the Browns and the Seahawks, if they ever really win anything. But anyways, we got a lot of banners. I know you have. Gary, can't really say so much about you. But that's going to do it here today. I was joined by my great co-host, Keith. Go follow him all over social media at SwampDonkey_90, as well as Gary. Go follow him all over social media at Gary.Dombeck. I'm Fernando. I am your host of Sports Time HQ. We're going to see you all next week for a mock draft. Goodbye, brother.